So it's officially official. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel again. Appreciate all the love and support with you guys coming over. P. Diddy judge kicks Juror off the case. You know, it was the rumors that it was going to happen, and it looked like the judge has followed through with, I believe it's Juror number 6. You know, there was a lot of back and forth, and then Diddy's team was saying they're only doing this because he's black, and you know, hopefully we can get a really good breakdown on everything since it's happened. So we ain't gonna waste no more time. Shout out to the Law and Crime Network channel. I'll leave in the description for you guys to check out more and even subscribe, man. Hope it's Elizabeth again, because boy, I tell you, she be bringing it. And hopefully it's no loud noise in the background to mess up her talking. All right, we ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So we have with us Law and Crime's in-court reporter, Elizabeth Milner, who has been there every day of this currently 6-week trial, the Sean Diddy Combs federal court case. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's great to see you. We have so many questions coming in. Aside from the fact that Marion DN, who says, meanwhile in London, not me delaying the family dinner to see Elizabeth come on. So you have a lot of people who are waiting to hear you. Let me ask you this. We got a question that came in from Allison Jones. Question for Elizabeth. Which team looks more worried, the defense or the prosecution?
Was that which team looks more ready? Is that what the question was?
Worried.
Worried. Oh, okay. That's a good question. Yeah, I think it kind of goes a little bit of both ways, because obviously we're kind of on the heels of what is about to be the defense case, right? And so I think they're kind of collecting everything, making sure all their ducks are in a row. But also with the government's case, I'm wondering, from the most part, from what we're understanding, it seems like the next big witness per se is going to be Brendan Paul. So as Brendan Paul's going to be one of the final witnesses, I'm wondering, do they have kind of something up their sleeves? Is there going to be kind of this big shocker moment with his testimony? Because outside of him,
so this is the mule, right? Diddy's mule. Huh. So is there not going to be a Kristina Khorram, the KK girl? Dang. I mean, we're going to see what he has to say. Dang, man.
Testifying this week, we're really just hearing a lot from summary witnesses at this point. And so I'm wondering at this point also who might be a little bit more worried. But I think with the dismissal of the juror that happened this morning, it seemed like the defense might be a teensy, and I say that very, very lightly, be a teensy bit worried. They seemed a little upset that the juror was dismissed.
Can we talk about this? Talk to us about what happened with the juror today that was dismissed. And also, apparently, there's an issue with another juror too. What's going on?
Yeah. So I think a lot of us wanted to know what was going to be happening to juror number 6. Now, we learned on Friday that the judge was leaning towards dismissing the juror, but then Xavier Donaldson, he got up, he kind of made this really impassioned speech about why this particular juror should stay on. And a lot of it had to do with race and diversity on the jury. And if that juror were to be dismissed, what kind of message would that send to other potential jurors too? And so, you know, the judge weighed both decisions really, and took the weekend to kind of think things over. So we learned about what his ultimate ruling was going to be first thing. And so he really kind of took into account what the defense had. And they released a filing over the weekend that I think was about 15 pages long of all the reasons why this particular juror shouldn't be dismissed. Also kind of throwing a little bit of light shade here and there to the prosecution. And so the judge took that all in, and he said this morning, you know, I understand its importance, but this amount of scrutiny isn't necessarily necessary. And so the judge was like, the inconsistencies from the juror raised a lot of these issues as far as why he was ultimately dismissed. So the judge said he went back, he looked at the record closely from voir dire, also to what the discussions were around the roving room, because remember, everybody, a lot of these inconsistencies really kind of had to do with this particular juror and whether or not he really revealed where he was truly living, whether or not it was in Jersey or in the Bronx. And so the judge went back, looked at everything, and said that he had serious concerns about the candor and how the this particular juror, might have skewed his answers to stay on the jury. And so he said this might be threatening the integrity of the jury process. And so the defense did bring up in their arguments that replacing this juror with a white juror might send the wrong message. And they were even trying to argue that this should be grounds for a mistrial. And then the judge was kind of like, I don't think there are grounds for a mistrial here. What we're ultimately going to do is just dismiss the juror. Now, as far as the other juror that's possibly being talked about right now, we don't know the full extent of what that is. We believe that possibly it might have had to do with what happened on Friday when the judge released all of us out of the courtroom, closed the doors, locked the doors to really kind of discuss what we initially thought was the juror number 6.
Boy, it's a lot going on. So juror number 6 got dismissed, and Diddy's team came up with all the reasons why he shouldn't have been. Now they're saying that this is when, basically when they got kicked out, this could possibly be, or that was possibly because of a new juror now. If you are lying or not truthful or whatever, just a teeny tiny bit on a case like this, you're out of here. That's crazy though, man. I still feel like something big is coming though. Do y'all honestly feel that too? Like something crazy, I feel like is about to happen.
Issue, but it turns out it might have to do with whatever happened to this other juror. So as far as I could tell, really only one juror was dismissed, and we kind of saw like a little shift in the change of the jury box where everyone, beginning I think it was from the second row, kind of trickling into the first row, just moved down one seat. And so we did see the new juror seated and everything like that, and then we still see the alternates in the back row, but we're kind of waiting to see more information about what this possible other juror issue might be, and so hopefully we'll learn about that more at the end of the day.
Speaking of the jurors, we had a question that just came in from 1989. A question for Elizabeth. Do the jurors look like they've heard enough?
Great question.
I mean, it's a lot of testimony that they've been hearing and listening to for weeks on end. I'm wondering, did they hear enough? Or are they kind of feeling like everything is feeling just a little bit repetitive? That question definitely goes through my mind a little bit, especially since we're doing a lot of summary charts, summary witnesses, where it's just a lot of charts and a lot of text messages, that type of thing. But they still have to be in it because we still have the defense's case to get through. So from what I've seen today, even with this juror now dismissed, that I have seen them still being attentive, still taking their notes. But I'm kind of wondering too, like how much information does this jury need? But from the government's case, they still need a little bit more before they can finally rest their case.
And look, Elizabeth, you're one of the rare people who actually gets to see these arguments unfold. You see the style of the attorneys. You see the reaction, which is why we have this question that comes in from Enlin DK. You were talking about Xavier Donaldson, right? How did you feel, Elizabeth, about Donaldson's arguments?
That's kind of a hard question for me to ask. You really threw me in there, Jesse. I understood where he was going with, right? Like I understood the impassion that he has, especially when it comes to race relations and the fact that it really has to do with just this diverse of a jury that we're really seeing. And, this being like one of the first federal trials that I'm covering, I'm not seeing kind of the same like things that maybe Xavier Donaldson is seeing, right? Like he has been practicing law, and I hate to put it this way, since I was like a little kid. And so he's had lots of experience kind of seeing that the diversity pool. I got that out there. But I don't have kind of that same, I guess, relation that he does as being a lawyer, being a criminal defense attorney. And so I understood where his argument was coming from, right? But I also was kind of also wondering, why were they so keen on having this particular juror when altogether this jury pool is very diverse from what I'm seeing? And so I understood his argument, but I also saw kind of both ways when it came to why this particular juror was dismissed. And I think, honestly, the judge made the right decision here.
Let me ask you about Kristina Khorram, because we have a question that came in, and you're an expert in this case since you've been following it. And by the way, today, Kristina Khorram has maybe come up more in these exhibits, in this evidence from this summary witness more than throughout this trial. Question from Mikey John. Elizabeth, are you surprised that KK wasn't called to the stand yet?
Man.
Yes. Absolutely. Like that, no brainer. I'm truly surprised that she's not being called as a government witness, especially because they have her devices. She could be somebody who could really kind of tie up the loose ends or maybe answer the questions that a lot of us still have in our brains. And so I'm really surprised that, especially as we're trickling down to the end of the government's case, that the next witness isn't Kristina Khorram. And I'm wondering at this point, is it possible the defense might call her? And if the defense does call her, what that could look like. And so I'm really and truly surprised that they're using her devices. The government is, but they're not calling her as a witness. So yes, definitely surprised there.
And we have a question from Al.
Yeah, man, like the way it was looking, you know, it was like, oh, she's probably going to take the stand. But again, like she said, if the defense, like if Diddy team calls her, that is going to be very interesting. You know, I'm wondering if they're going to try to get her to, I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. I am, out of all the stuff we've heard so far, out of everything we know up to today, to me, that is the most shocking thing in this trial, is that she has not testified. Diddy's right hand. Like how she said, can tie up loose ends and all that. Very, very shocking.
Allison Thompson about the judge, Judge Arun Subramanian. What has the judge's body language been like? Do you get any vibes as to which side is favored? Well, the judge shouldn't side with any, shouldn't favor any side, but do you get a, I mean, we don't know how he's behaving, what his demeanor's like. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so as far as the judge's demeanor, all across the board from what I've seen so far during this trial and even during the pre-trial hearings, is that he's very fair. Like, it's never a situation where you're kind of like, oh, he's a little pro-government here or he's a little pro-defense here. He really kind of gives both sides their wins when it's applicable, right? And even as in terms of just his body language while listening to the testimony, and if there's an objection from one side, so for example, if the defense has an objection to the prosecution's line of questioning, he kind of gives the prosecution a little bit of leeway to be like, okay, maybe you want to rephrase that question so that way we can get rid of the objection, so that way we can continue on with the proceedings. And then if there's a point where, you know, there's an objection, there has to be a discussion that's had in this sidebar, he's willing to do a sidebar. And so from the most part, and this should be how every judge kind of operates a courtroom, I think you should always take notes from Judge Arun Subramanian. He is above board, he is fair on both sides, and really it's never a situation where you have to feel like he is, or you think that he is biased in any sort of way.
Let me get another question to you, Elizabeth, before we have to let you go. This is from Lisa5472. How was Diddy when they finally said the juror was dismissed?
I think he was a little bit disappointed, I'm not going to lie, especially given the long kind of defense letter that was put in over the weekend, given the arguments that were made by his defense attorneys. Outside of just Xavier Donaldson, it was also, Brian still did make a quick argument on Friday, but also Mark Agnifilo too. And so I think from what I could tell of just Diddy's body language and demeanor, it seemed like this was something he was kind of a little upset about as far as this particular juror being dismissed. And so, you know, it's interesting to see kind of how his movements have been so far ever since then, especially because we're seeing so many summary witness charts and all of this stuff, and they're putting all the pieces of the puzzle kind of in a chart format to the jury. But he did seem a little down and disappointed by this juror's dismissal today.
Elizabeth, before we dismiss you, before you have to head back into the courtroom, aside from just the kind and positive comments you've been receiving from our viewers, and at least one person who's concerned about when you're actually getting lunch and when you have time to eat, I did want to ask you this question from Shai. Please ask Elizabeth Milner, what is used to block the face of pseudonym witnesses?
What? Oh, they do not block the face of pseudonym witnesses. The witnesses we see inside the courtroom, they're fully present. We can see them.
And that is a huge problem. Of course, the artist is drawing them, but not drawing their face. I said maybe they need to testify behind something. I don't know, because again, all the people who have testified and tried to stay anonymous have been revealed. I ain't gonna say who they are, but pretty much everybody already know. Yeah, and like I said before, But I mean, the prosecution is talking about arresting on Friday, because I was like, I wonder who else is supposed to testify and who else is, or people going to be scared to now. But yeah, man.
Faces, we can see their demeanor on the stand. Obviously, as I'm reporting, kind of the face of pseudonym witnesses. The witnesses we see inside the courtroom, they're fully present. We can see their faces, we can see their demeanor on the stand. Obviously, as I'm reporting kind of what they had been saying, I have to be extremely careful not to reveal their names. But as far as just any type of shielding that they use to kind of, you know, shield their physical appearance, none of that from what we see. Even in the overflow room, it's not a situation where the people in the overflow room are getting a box or anything like that in terms of covering this particular, or covering the witness's face. And that's why there's been so many kind of issues after these witnesses have testified, even if it's during a break where people kind of, you know, might have a little bit of loose lips and they'll come out, they'll text their friends or do it in a live stream and reveal the witness's true identity. So there's nothing that we see covering their face. We see them all in full form.
And I appreciate you clarifying that, because, you know, when we put up the courtroom sketches and there's a blocked out face, people might believe that there's something that was used to cover their face. That's not the case. You just have to be very careful about not only describing, obviously not their identity, but even some physical characteristics or defining features where people might be able to determine who that person is. Elizabeth Milner, I know you have to jump back in court. Thank you so much. It was great seeing you.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, so now.
Oh, man. I don't know. I'm scared to go in these comments, to be honest. Everybody's just giving Elizabeth props, as they should. Dang, man. People are yeah. Everybody, there's a lot of people talking about KK, man. I don't know, y'all. This news was very disappointing. Very disappointing, man, because, like, if they named her a co-conspirator, you would, I don't know, bro. This is, guess we gotta wait and see. But something huge might be coming, man. I don't know. I got this like weird gut feeling that it's gonna be like breaking news, like groundbreaking bombshell news. Gotta stay tuned for this, see what is gonna happen with this other juror. Hey, appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. You can find a full video in the description, man. Peace out.